You're welcome to Everyday Global Anglicans, Gafcon's format for interview that we'll be turning into podcast and breaking it up into different bits and pieces for you to hear and learn about what is going on the grassroots level and otherwise around the Anglican communion with confessing Anglicans. I'm excited here to have with us today two co-leaders of the Suffering Church Network for Gafcon, and that is Faith McDonnell, excuse me, I said McDonnell, you're not McDonald's, you're McDonnell. And Faith is a fiery advocate for the suffering church and the persecuted church around the world, living outside of Washington, D.C. in the United States. She works for the Institute for Religion and Democracy. And you go to Church of the Apostles, is that where you go?
I do.
The Anglican church outside of Northern Virginia, strong church outside of Northern Virginia. And we're joined by Bishop Andudu. And Bishop Andudu is actually my neighbor. We live in the same neighborhood. He lives a half a mile down the road from me. And he is here in Harrisonburg, Virginia, which is in the Shenandoah Valley in the United States. Bishop Andudu was in Sudan from approximately March through to June. Was that correct, Bishop?
Yes.
Of this year. And was kind of stuck there due to the COVID crisis. And thankfully is now back with his family, who is all here in Harrisonburg, Virginia. We are also joined by Joshua Sali. Again, this is the second time Joshua has joined us from Uganda, outside of Kampala?
Yeah, outside Kampala, Mityana.
Okay, so now Bishop Andudu actually lived in Uganda for a while and even started a church, I believe, in Kampala. So you two might have familiar territory, even maybe have gone to the same seminary. Is that possible? Back in the day. But we welcome Joshua. The reason we are here is that there is very good news, as I understand it, coming out of the nation of Sudan, which will be impacting the church in Sudan. And so for that reason, we thought what better way to understand what's going on and to thank God for the prayers that have been answered, it appears, and to learn how to continue to pray for the situation in Sudan. So I think what kicked all of this off, in my understanding, and for many people, was a brilliant article written by Faith on exactly this situation. So Faith, would you be able and willing to give a quick overview of where we stand? And then I want to start getting into the details from Bishop Andudu and what he is hearing from the ground.
Sure. I'm a little nervous when you say that my article kicked it off. Like, don't anybody think my article kicked off the whole peace thing.
In my world,
it kicked off this video. Yeah, it kicked off our interview.
Right.
Also, just very quickly, today is September 11th, which is a very important day to those of us in the United States. And to me, it's very connected to Sudan. I was actually in the House of Representatives, Rayburn House office building on 9/11 for a press conference about Sudan when the first plane hit. We were going to have a press conference about Sudan's connections to terrorism and how the U.S. should have capital market sanctions against companies that did business with Sudan. And that was all forgotten when the planes hit. But for me, Sudan and 9/11 have always been intertwined, not to mention the fact that what has happened to the Nuba Mountains and other places was like 9/11 every day. So this is very good news indeed. I wrote an article called Sudan's September Surprise because nobody saw this coming. And I'll let the bishop give the statement that he gave to us the other day, which floored me too. But nobody saw this coming. There have been peace agreements going on about Sudan that the US, the UK, others have been involved with, trying to, do the kumbaya thing. But they were all very compromised with the Islamists in Sudan. They all were making people make acquiescences that they shouldn't have to make. And our friend Commander Abdelaziz wasn't going to sign that kind of an agreement. So he was kind of like if you know the expression, the skunk at the garden party, because everybody else was, oh, peace, peace, peace. But as the Bible says, you say peace and there is no peace. And Abdelaziz was not going to do that. So he and the prime minister of Sudan started making their own agreement, which is just incredible. So that was the September surprise, this joint agreement, which the bishop can tell you more about as well. But unbelievably, this agreement says that there will be separation of religion and state in Sudan. Wow. So this is kind of a miracle. This really is. And we know that Sudan in the past has broken many agreements. But I think if we go forward with this very positively, and if the world, all of our leaders around the world and our religious leaders congratulate Sudan for coming into something like this, we can help encouraging that it goes forward, and that the government of Sudan understands that you've really done a good thing, and we're going to hold you to it. So so this is the most optimistic I've been in a long time. I mean, other people have been, last year when Sudan, when they kicked out Bashir, I was like, well, that's a great thing, but it's a long way to go. But now they have come a long, long way with this agreement. So I've said enough. I'm very happy and thanking God for this, and ask everyone to pray that this continues to go forward the way that it is. And glory be to God.
Thank you. Excellent summary.
Yeah, that's very interesting to hear. And I also see the joy that you express in this new direction as a person working closely in Sudan. It's a very joyful moment. Even here down south in Uganda, when I was reading through the article, it was very exciting. It's very, very interesting. I think I just want to jump to Bishop immediately, because Bishop, you're very connected, and being a minister, what is this to you, especially that you know these people personally? What does this mean to you as a bishop?
Yeah, thank you so much for this hosting. This is very good news to me, and the former government have been signing agreements. Is over almost 50 agreement was signed and it was not implemented. And this is very great. In over 500 years, this is the best agreement ever signed since since the three kingdoms of Nuba in the north. That's Nubatia and Macquarie and Alawa. When they fall in the 15th century, the Nuba people and the Sudanese, they have been in mess all this time. They were oppressed by many governments, like British colonized Sudan, Egyptians colonized Sudan, and then we have Sudanese government, which was led by the Islamists, is oppressing people all these years. So this is the very good news, because the church in Sudan is persecuted. And why the reason I'm here in the US is I'm one of the victims. So, and this agreement, it gives room and light to us as the Christians in Sudan. It will give a freedom to the people, freedom for religion, because the religion in Sudan is not allowed in many areas. The Bible is thrown into the Red Sea, and the churches were destroyed. Many churches were destroyed, and many leaders were killed and was expelled from Sudan. But now, with signing this peace agreement, which says they will separate the religion from the state, and that will give us the freedom. Not only the Christian, but also the Muslims will have a freedom of their religion, because the state religion was Islam, and that's a compromise to other religions, and it was to oppress the other religions. And also the agreement is talking about the equality for all people, and that was not the case. Also, this agreement is talking about the people being recognized, like Muslims, like ethnicity, like culture, is going to be, the government is going to realize all these, because Sudan is multi-racial and multi-ethnic and multi-religious country. So all these will be accommodated in the new government and in this agreement. Also, it talks about cessation of the hostilities, and also the principle of appropriate and fair sharing of the power and wealth among the various people of the Sudan. So it contains a lot of good things, and this is really the hope for whole Sudanese, not only the SPLA, but the whole Sudanese. This is what they were hoping for all these years.
Bishop, I was just looking at the fact that you say that persecution, which is something that it's wide, even in Africa, in the entire Africa, there's a lot of persecution, religious persecution. And my mind goes in the direction that once this peace agreement is upheld, and it is going, there would be chances that persecution might increase. And this would be calling the church to respond. Do you think the church is ready for persecution response?
We're already in the persecution.
Yes.
And we have been coping up. And one thing is with the persecution is the growth of the church. Many things are gone bad. People were hungry. People were killed. All these past 10 years. But the only good things, it was the church. Because, you know, the blood of martyrs is the seed of the church. And people have strong faith. They rely on God in this time. And the church expanded. Many people joined the church from other faiths, from those who are practicing African traditional religion. So we never know what will happen. But this is actually, the agreement is declaration of the principles. On this agreement, they will discuss and negotiate the peace agreement in Sudan. It's not yet, but this is the declaration of the principle, which we have been trying to achieve many years. I was involved in peace talk 2 years. We had like 10 rounds. We could not reach to this. We say this is a very good step towards the peace.
That's good news. That's good to know.
Yeah,
that's such good news.
We really need to appreciate Prime Minister Hamdok for this. And I'm sure he's getting a lot of opposition, even from people in his own government, particularly on the military side. But he's a courageous man, and he is a just man. So between he and Commander Abdelaziz, the general of the Sudan People's Liberation Army North, it's owed to them. And again, as I said about Abdelaziz, he refused to compromise. He also protected the people of the Nuba Mountains. You were talking about persecution. It was genocide in the Nuba Mountains, both in between 2011 and about 2017. But before that, in the North-South War, more more people were killed in the Nuba Mountains possibly than even in South Sudan.
Wow.
There was a genocide going on. So and Abdelaziz was one of the commanders of the SPLA then. So yeah, we owe a lot to that man too, and pray for him. He's a good man.
Sure.
Yeah,
Let me come.
really from this stand, I want to give thanks and gratitude to the Prime Minister, Dr. Hamdok, and Commander Abdul Aziz for this good effort. I'm very grateful to them, and we are behind them, and we will pray for them, and God give them wisdom and give them strength.
Mm.
Sure. Bishop, as we talking about this, and we are starting to pray, I think this would be a call for prayer for everyone, for Sudan, for South Sudan, for the entire Sudan, and
Yes.
then to uphold this.
Yes.
But I'm looking at the direction of there are many pastors that are imprisoned, that were in prison because of their religious ministry, their evangelism. Will they be released?
Yes, that some of them already released, but many of them they out of the country of Sudan. One of them is like me. I can go to Sudan. I'm planning actually within 3 weeks. I'm going back to Sudan to the Diocese of Kadugli.
Wow.
And but it's still some things I may not be able to reach all the areas of my diocese, but at least I will go to some part of the area. But with the signing of peace, we will be able to move freely to all corners of Sudan. And we pray that God will help the leaders to be able to sign the sustainable peace agreement in Sudan.
You know, that's really good news. Back to the Diocese of Kadugli, yeah, which is where you took us, us meaning a few of our my friends from Church of the Incarnation who helped sponsor this trip. We went in March, excuse me. And what struck me in the trip was when we went in, well, many towns that we went into, all the towns, people welcomed you joyously. But when we went into one town, I can't remember which, there was a Bible school there, I think, and that had been there maybe 5 years, I believe.
More than that, yeah.
And you had told me that, I mean, it was this throngs of people coming around and cheering, and a very large meeting, and dignitaries and everybody there. And my understanding was several years ago, I'm not sure how many, 5, 10 years ago, essentially there were no Christians in that town. And now there was just, everyone was walking around with a cross and holding it. As a matter of fact, the cross was given to me, and I keep it as a treasure. Tell us a bit about what God is doing there in the midst of all of this persecution that's been going on, that continues to go on, that we might be seeing a thaw. What is the status of the church in Sudan? Where is it now?
Yeah, against of all these odds and difficulties and persecution, the church is growing in the Nuba Mountains. Not only growing, but it's thriving. We have thousands of people joining the church. Last year, I confirmed 914 people. That's the new people coming to the church. And the previous year, I confirmed over 1,000. So God is opening the door, because people are under persecution and they're praying, they only depend on God. But yet we are ready to forgive our neighbors, and we are doing missions, and there is a spirit of God is going on in the Nuba Mountains and in the refugee camps. Many witchcrafts, they come to Christ, and many non-Christian come to Christ, and people are happy in the church. God is doing a lot. There is a real spiritual revival going on. I'm planning for a big revival this December. I'm raising funds for that, and God is doing wonders.
Yeah. Well, just as a reminder, everyone, you are listening to Gafcon's Everyday Global Anglicans, and you know this is just an interview format that really could be used as a podcast, and we'll be doing that. We'll be eventually putting these in a podcast platform, and hopefully also chopping up bits and pieces of these interviews to share as well. And so it's a beginning format that we're developing, and have the opportunity with Zoom to connect with people around the world. And if you want to learn more about Gafcon and the Suffering Church, it's a network that Bishop Andudu and Faith co-lead. Last year, Faith provided devotions during a month where we focused on the Suffering Church. You can even go back and see some of those devotions. It was an amazing series that dug into around the world, different places where the church is being persecuted. She has a depth of knowledge that's unbelievable regarding that, and as an activist, she puts her money where her mouth is, for sure.
I get in trouble for it too.
And has been an advocate of Sudan for quite a long time as well. So it's a privilege to be with you guys and talking about what is happening in Sudan. Bishop, there's when I was there, it just was really truly one of the highlights of my life to see the resilience of people. What is it that people are seeing? I mean, they have been oppressed for so long by Islam and Sharia law, and what is it that you see or hearing from them as they are drawn to Christ and become to put their faith in Him?
There is a lot of signing, actually, what the Bible talked about at the end of the days. And we have been seeing this a lot. And in everyday life, God is confirming the Bible is true. And these wars and this starvation and hunger in many countries, this is some of the signs. Even Corona is some of the curses that is going around all the world. So people are expecting the Lord. So we have been suffering here in earth, in the Nuba Mountains. We are not ready to suffer again at the end of the world. So people are keeping on the faith, and we're preaching. And also there's a lot of signs going on, especially, for example, when there was no rain, people asked all the Christians to pray and fast. We started at 6, then at 9, the rain already came down. That's the answer prayer immediately. So there's a lot of things going on. It's not just believing, but we see God's hand going on in the Nuba Mountains.
If I could do one more follow up. So the last couple days I was there, we were actually Bishop Andudu, you led a series of seminars and trainings that I thought had such foresight. You know, it's one thing to, you know, push for peace talks and have peace talks and finally sign an agreement. But then after that agreement, as we just mentioned, you know, problems can occur from reaction from the other side, but also within tribes. All of a sudden, then there's a political shifting of the landscape, and some players try and take power and fill in vacuums and gaps. And sometimes the tribalism can cause divisions to boil over. And you, maybe you could speak to this for can understand that dynamic better, are leading workshops with lay leaders and pastoral clergy on nonviolence and peace trainings, so that when the sign peace happens, that the peace on the ground continues to happen. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I've been working on peace for over than 15 years as a bishop. And because this is crucial, we are in the time of war where most people need for peace. And now the peace is approaching, but peace building and Peace building is the life process, it's continuous process. We cannot say we are now achieved peace, we are about to have a peace. We will continue to have peace culture and peace workshops and seminars for other people and for all people, not only the Christians and the church leaders, but also the military and the commanders. We come together because all of us, we need peace. We will continue doing that. And already we have some set plans for peace building workshops.
Thank you for your leadership in that. I was so impressed to see that that's happening and the foresight to be preparing for that. Yeah. Joshua, did you have a question?
Yeah, I am thinking about bringing it to Faith, I think, because she has a great link with Sudan. Faith, I'm looking at the possibility that there will be aid, missionary work, and any outside help. Do you think with this signing, will that be liberated as well, and people will be able to come in?
Yeah,
No.
I think that's a very good option. During the time before this, there have been problems, and the government of Sudan would not allow certain aid groups in, had to have even food aid delivered through Khartoum, which was not a good option. And my country, the United States, kind of fought back against that and was trying to get aid that would cross lines, as they called it, but it wasn't as well as it could have been. So I think this is a great opportunity. This is a great opening to be able to help, not even so much with aid as development. I think the people that I know from Nuba Mountains, I have not been yet to the Nuba Mountains, hint, hint, Bishop, but I've been to Yida refugee camp where I think there were about 110,000 people at the time that I was there. I can't remember, but the Nuba were so resilient. I mean, even when the UN would not give them grain and stuff to plant, they didn't want them planting because they didn't want them to get too comfortable there. The people would go back into the Nuba Mountains and get things and then plant them. And I saw gorgeous gardens in Yida refugee camp where people had been planting. So I think development aid is going to be very important. And since one of the principles of that agreement talks about rights sharing, the rights to all of the wonderful natural resources that God has gifted the Nuba Mountains with, need to help the people of the Nuba Mountains as well.
You were about to say something, Bishop.
Yes, in the Nuba Mountains, all these years, like these 9 years, we are just there alone. We miss our brothers and sisters around the world. But last March, when the group from here, including Dido, Ernie, when they were first group. They were first group to come and visit us, because the government banned every organization or Christians to come and visit us. So by this, I ask all the Christians who are able to come, they can come, and we will be rejoicing. And it was very great encouragement to people, see people from another world, and they still talking about them. And this is very good to see somebody coming from blue, somebody coming because of Christ, and he said, I'm your brother, I'm your sister. This is very, very strong and very big encouragement. I hope by this peace we will have many people, not only people seeing one bishop every time, they will see other bishops as well from around the world.
Well, that's a great launching point to say, for me to say, this is part of the purpose of what we're doing right now, and what the Suffering Church Network is about. It's so that we can be praying for each other, You know, we get word constantly from Nigeria of the persecution, and Faith is very well versed on that is happening in Nigeria. Our very own Archbishop Ben Kwashi, the General Secretary for Gafcon, he is under the thumb of it all the time. In Pakistan and other countries where uh, the church is thriving on the ground and you don't see it, but they're also being persecuted. And it's by doing things like this, and we hear from them all the time that, well, for instance, I heard from someone in a South Asia country saying, you know, we need your prayers more than anything, and we need them to for the prayer is to be sustained through it. They're not saying take the persecution away, many of them. They're saying we need to be sustained through that, because of course the Bible talks often about how we as Christians we will likely go through persecution and suffering. And so to be doing this where we share one another's burdens and learn how to pray for each other and with each other is very important. On that note, then, Bishop Andudu, how can we be praying going forward for Sudan and your people?
Yeah, with this growth of church in the Nuba Mountains, we need really a prayer for God to continue doing the work. And we want some resources for constructing the church buildings and what was destroyed in this time of war. And also we want resources to continue doing peace building through the church and carry on with evangelism and doing some seminars. And also we need the support for Bible school, which is really it's not well developed because of the war. But now there is a room where people can pray for us, can visit us, and can support us.
Well, on that note, let me just provide you the opportunity for a shameless plug on, is there a way that people can help there? I know that a nonprofit had been established or is being established. Is there?
Yes, in the Harrisonburg, there is a nonprofit organization is under the way. It's called Day Packs for Nuba. That's Peace of God for Nuba. And this is that where you can maybe channel some of the funds to come to the people of Sudan.
Brothers and sisters, I can assure you, I mean, firsthand seeing the situation where if they don't, buildings completely bombed out, there's no buildings to meet in, but that doesn't stop them. They take a chalkboard that's been broken up and just pieces of it, and they literally go out underneath a tree to have class. They continue on, but that's not sustainable. So yes, there is a great need particularly as they begin rebuilding infrastructure. So we can be praying for that, looking for resources to provide them. And for you personally, I think, Bishop, you not only do you do this, you are bishop by extension, or bishop in exile, but you also do work here in the United States, do you not?
Yeah, yes, I helped the immigrants. We have a lot of immigrants. When I'm here just with my family, I will try to organize the church. And there was a church in Pennsylvania. I was there last week to open. The congregation asked me to open the church, and there is a big need for the leadership in the U.S. here for the immigrant churches, because Sudanese and South Sudanese and other immigrants, they have not fully integrated into the church system here because of the difference of the way people worship here, the language, and many factors. So they have some other, they form a group and they will just worship as immigrant church, but they need leadership, they need resources, and they need guidance in this new culture. And this is what I'm doing. I've been doing all these years when I'm come to US. And the church also here is thriving. Thriving is going well, the immigrant churches.
Yes, I can again attest firsthand to seeing that. You know, you're seeing Bishop Andudu being looked to by in so many different ways, people that are just arriving from the Sudan, immigrants, and what do we do and how do we set up and who do they go to? Well, they go to the lead ministers and the leaders in the community, which is Bishop Andudu. There's so many variables that happen when immigrants arrive. One of the problems is the youth, and the youth who are, part of their life was raised in another country, and now they're in this other completely different culture and country, and lots of turmoil can happen with that. So Bishop Andudu is often there for that, for people to help in that way. Faith, shameless plug. What is it that you are working on, and who do you work for? And tell us about that so we can put it in the
okay.
Facebook.
I direct the International Religious Liberty Program at the Institute on Religion and Democracy in Washington, D.C. That's IRD.org. And I do advocacy for persecuted Christians around the world. Also, of course, am helping with Bishop Andudu to lead the Suffering Church Network, and also through New Wineskins Missions Network, we have an Anglican persecuted church network that I'm the co-leader of. So really just blessed to be doing this work. Last year, right about this time, I was at Nuba Day in Lincoln, Nebraska. That's where this necklace came from, Bishop, and I wore it in honor of that. And I'm just thinking how amazing God is that, last year, all the Nuba in the U.S. had gathered in Lincoln and were really just praying for this to happen, not realizing that it would happen, and that a year later we would see this. And I think, as Bishop said, this is revival. These are the last days. And and Joshua, I love Uganda too. Haven't been there yet, but when I wrote my book Girl Soldier with Grace Akalo about the LRA and Coney, part of what I wrote in the book was about the East African revival and how God blessed you all so much and strengthened you before Idi Amin came, before the hell of Joseph Kony came. And I'm just praying for another East African revival, maybe this time to start in Sudan. So we need it everywhere in the world. And so the lessons and the history of the East African revival have been such a blessing to me just to learn about.
I actually went to school, to university with Grace Akalo, so we were in the same.
No way!
Oh yes, oh yes.
So you've read our book.
I know her personally. We were in the same class at the university.
Oh my goodness! That's awesome.
Small world.
Yes. It's very interesting. I've been to her region in Lira. I've been to all that place, and we had some time to see what happened. So I pray that the revival this time, Christian revival, will come from Sudan, coming down through the East Africa again.
Amen.
That will be very good. So, amen. Amen.
Fantastic.